My hand shook just a little as I pressed the final ram stick into place, careful not to force it. There's a kind of electricity in small victories, the kind you don't get applause for, but your heart remembers. I stared at the shining components nestled inside the case, cables tied with patience and a little bit of hope. This wasn't just a computer. It was a promise to myself, a reminder that even in a house where attention was currency and mine always felt a little devalued, I could build something with my own hands. It was early spring in Austin, the light soft and new through the kitchen window, the scent of strong coffee and sizzling bacon drifting through the house. Mom sat at the end of the table, scrolling her phone, her lips moving silently as she read the latest headlines. She glanced up only when she heard me pour cold brew into my reusable cup. "You always work too hard, Ashley," she said, sliding a slice of bacon onto my plate. Her eyes never quite settled on me, like she was always half in another world. That was her way, love in the form of breakfast and reminders to slow down, but not in lingering hugs or long conversations. Dad's footsteps thudded overhead, and the clatter of Madison's music drifted from the hall. There was a kind of rhythm to our mornings, and it usually meant I got 15 minutes of peace before someone needed something. I balanced my laptop and textbook as I settled into my spot by the window, my unofficial office with a view of the tiny backyard. My freelance queue blinked at me, 2 logo designs, 3 emails from clients asking about revisions, and a reminder about my college paper due at midnight. I was halfway through a sketch when Madison burst into the kitchen, all perfume and energy, waving her phone. "Ash, can you drive me to Tori's later? She says she found the perfect shoes for prom." "Oh, and have you seen my green jacket?" I pointed toward the coat rack without looking up. "It's there, under the tote bags." She plucked it free, barely glancing at me. "Thanks, you're the best." She left a faint trail of vanilla behind her, and I could almost hear Mom's silent approval. 15 minutes of peace had become 10. I sighed and took a sip of cold brew, scrolling through my inbox for a client's feedback. My phone buzzed. "Ethan, of course." "Video incoming, Ethan." He grinned at me through the screen, a messy head of curls and a breakfast taco in hand. "Ash, tell me you finally put that rig together. Don't make me come over there." "You know I will, and I'll bring those sketchy tacos from 6th Street. I couldn't help but smile. "Almost there. Ram's going in tonight." He held his taco up in salute. "Victory is in sight. Seriously, you're going to dominate that design contest. Also, promise me you'll take a break and run with me tomorrow? I can't be the only out-of-breath dork at Town Lake." "Promise," I laughed, though I doubted either of us would really show up. Work bled into afternoon. I lost track of time until Madison called from her room. "Ash, can I borrow your boots? Just for a sec." Before I could answer, I heard her rummaging. I found her later, boots on, balancing a cup of iced coffee and a purse. She looked guilty for a split second before offering a quick sorry. "I'll clean them if they get dirty." Hours later, when I finally had a break, I found my favorite pair with a sticky coffee ring across the toe. I wiped at the stain, heart sinking. When I told Mom, she waved a hand. "It's just a little coffee, honey. You know your sister doesn't mean any harm." I wanted to argue, but the words felt heavy and useless. Evening fell, and the house filled with the smells of comfort food, mac and cheese bubbling in the oven, garlic bread crisping under the broiler. Family dinners had a script, Dad at the head, Madison in the center, Mom smoothing conversation like a tablecloth. I waited for my moment as Madison recounted her day, the hilarious mishap with prom decorations, the impossible math test, the shoes Tori almost bought but didn't. When it was my turn, I cleared my throat. I got shortlisted for that design gig I told you about. The freelance thing, it might turn into a steady client. Mom smiled distractedly. That's nice, dear. Madison, did you pick a color for your dress yet? Madison launched into a debate over emerald versus royal blue, and I let my words dissolve into the hum of family routine. Dad just nodded, the way he always did when he didn't quite understand my world. After dinner, I retreated to my room, posters of digital art, my digital art, lining the walls. My desk was a chaos of sketchbooks, styluses, and the gleaming parts of my dream build. The house was quieter now, even the air felt softer. I put on my headphones, lost in the steady beat of late-night playlists, the familiar comfort of solitude. Piece by piece, I brought my computer to life. My hands moved with confidence, the repetition of years spent saving for each part, birthdays, holidays, babysitting gigs, late nights spent hunched over my old laptop so I could someday afford this. The power supply clicked into place. The monitor cable snaked around the desk. I double-checked everything. Then, holding my breath, I pressed the power button. The fan spun, lights blinked, and for a second the screen stayed black. I closed my eyes, made a silent wish, and then the desktop glowed to life, crisp, blue, perfect. My chest filled with a kind of joy that no one could take away, not even if they tried. I leaned back, letting the hum of the machine fill the space around me. I was tired, but it was the good kind, the kind that reminds you you're working for something that matters. Just as I was about to shut everything down, Madison wandered in, her hair twisted up, phone in hand. She looked from the glowing screen to me and back again, lips curling into a smirk. Is that yours? Hope you saved the receipt. She didn't wait for an answer. She just drifted out, leaving the door ajar, and for a long moment I sat there in the blue glow, torn between pride and a familiar ache that things might never change. But at least, for now, this small victory was mine. You're so lucky to have a sister like Madison, Mom told me one Tuesday morning, the words drifting over the kitchen island as Madison shook out the last of my favorite cereal into her own bowl. I watched as she swirled a spoon in the milky sugar and, without a second glance, left the box empty for me to discover later. The sun was already hot, painting the backyard in a wash of white light. I poured myself the last splash of coffee and watched the girls at the table, Mom reading from her tablet, Madison busy texting with her manicured nails, the tap-tap-tap like a metronome of daily life. Somewhere in the house, Dad's voice rumbled through a closed door on a call with a client. It's funny the memories you return to when you're overlooked. For me, it was a birthday long ago, one of those childhood afternoons sticky with icing and jealousy. I remember my cake, baked by my own hands, uneven but sweet, sitting beside Madison's pristine, store-bought creation from the best bakery in town. The kitchen was full of people, but it was Madison who ended up in most of the photos, grinning in her party dress. I don't think I ever saw a single picture of my lopsided cake again. Late spring had wrapped itself around our house with prom talk and shopping lists. Madison's friends seemed to multiply, their laughter filling up the living room every afternoon, shoes and bags tossed everywhere, a parade of fashion consults. They brought an energy I never seemed to match. My space, by contrast, was a haven of unfinished digital projects, sticky notes, and half-charged devices. I spent more time among my glowing screens and open sketchbooks than anywhere else, comforted by the gentle hum of my computer and the slow drift of light across my desk. That week, a client dropped a last-minute freelance job into my lap, a Rush logo that paid well, but only if I delivered by morning. I skipped out on the family's movie night, promising myself I'd make it up to them another time. No one seemed to notice my absence. When I finally left my room, the credits were rolling and the others were lost in debate about which actor had the best smile. My contribution, once again, slipped through the cracks. Madison's friends flooded the house all week, using the kitchen as their personal runway. I learned to sidestep hair straighteners and makeup kits on my way to the fridge. One afternoon, Madison swept in, arms full of dresses. "Don't you have anything cuter, Ash? Maybe you can borrow something of mine for once." I tried to laugh it off. "I'll survive with what I've got." She and her friends giggled, not unkindly, but not with me either. Later, as I sat on the porch with my laptop, Dad found me. He stood, hands on his hips, surveying my makeshift office. "You know, Ashley, these little gigs are fine, but you'll need a real job soon. Something with benefits, maybe." I looked up from my sketch, careful to keep my voice even. "It pays more than you think, Dad. And I'm building a portfolio." He shook his head. "Just don't close any doors. Madison's thinking about business school, you know." Of course she was. Ethan texted that night. "You out of the Batcave yet? Taco run?" I smiled at my screen, tempted. But I checked my account balance, saw the bills I'd promised myself I'd help with, and replied. "Rain check. Clients on the warpath and deadlines don't wait." He sent a taco emoji and a "don't work too hard" legend that made me chuckle despite myself. Dinner was a blur of voices and clinking plates. We picked at barbecue takeout, ribs and tangy sauce, slaw heavy with vinegar, rolls gone before I got a second. Madison held court, her stories about prom drama growing wilder with every retelling. Mom chimed in about the new store downtown with a "can you believe these prices?" Dad's phone kept buzzing. I listened from the sidelines, my updates on freelance projects drowned out by talk of sequins and hairstyles. Later, I heard Mom on the phone, her voice bright. "Oh, we just got Madison the prettiest dress. Emerald, like her eyes." Yes, she's always been so easy to shop for. It stung, even if it shouldn't. My own wins, landing a big client, getting a tiny note of praise in a crowded inbox, felt small in comparison to Madison's latest fashion haul. That night, my door cracked open. Madison peeked in, still glowing from her day. "Hey, if you ever want advice on shoes, let me know. I'm basically an expert now." I smiled weakly. "I'll keep that in mind." She left, already busy with another text. By the time the house grew quiet, I was back at my desk. The blue light from my PC was both comfort and reminder. I had bills, I had deadlines, and I had something no one could take, the knowledge that my work mattered, even if no one else in this house saw it. It was close to midnight when I heard it, a grinding, stuttering whine from the fan inside my PC. I froze, a chill crawling up my spine. I leaned in, listening, hoping it was just dust or a cable nudged out of place. But the sound persisted, an uneasy rhythm that seemed to echo the little cracks growing all around me. I tried to focus, finishing my work as best I could. The house was dark, the only light the glow from my screen and the promise of another day. But I couldn't help but feel a warning in that soft, insistent grind, like something important was on the verge of breaking. The house was too quiet when I got home, never a good sign, especially on a Saturday. Usually, there'd be the muffled sound of Madison's playlists, Mom calling out reminders from somewhere behind a closed door, or Dad tinkering with something in the garage. That afternoon, all I heard was the hum of the air conditioner and the faint scent of lavender drifting from the laundry room. Even my own footsteps felt too loud. I set my keys down, thinking maybe everyone was out. My mind wandered to Ethan's text from earlier that week. "Hide that PC, or Madison'll borrow it for real." I'd laughed at the time. Now, the silence in the house made it feel less like a joke and more like a premonition. Heading upstairs, I tried not to think about deadlines or my to-do list. I had a plan: finish my clients' edits, maybe sneak out for tacos if I wrapped early enough. It was a routine that grounded me, the familiar rhythm of work and reward. But when I opened the door to my room, the breath caught in my throat. The desk was empty. No monitor. No tower. No mouse, keyboard, or even the bundle of cords I'd wound so neatly behind the surge protector. Just a rectangle of dust where my PC used to sit and the ghost of its blue glow. For a moment, I just stood there, waiting for my mind to catch up. Maybe Mom had decided to tidy up. Maybe Madison had borrowed my setup for a Zoom party. Maybe. But the room looked ransacked. My sketchbooks were scattered, some open and creased. The headphones I always left hanging were missing, replaced by a single sticky note on my lamp. "Don't freak out, ask Mom." My heart hammered. I rushed downstairs, 2 steps at a time. The kitchen was bathed in afternoon light, Mom sitting at the table with a mug of tea, scrolling her phone as if nothing in the world was wrong. Dad stood at the counter, slicing apples with slow precision. I barely recognized my own voice. "Where's my computer?" Mom didn't look up right away. She set down her mug and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Ashley, you're home." "Good." I pressed again, sharper this time. "Where is it?" "My whole setup, everything's gone." Dad didn't turn. He just kept slicing, the knife hitting the board in a steady rhythm. Mom sighed, like I'd just asked a silly question about dinner. "We sold it." I stared, trying to process the words. "You what?" She finally looked at me, her expression soft but implacable. "Honey, your sister needed some help. She has that important event coming up, and we didn't have the money for everything she needed. So, we sold your computer." It was just sitting there, and, well, it made sense. I felt the world shrink to a pinpoint. The room, the light, the hum of the AC, it all seemed to fade except for the roaring in my ears. That computer wasn't just sitting there. I need it for work. "You didn't even ask me." Dad's tone was steady, almost rehearsed. "Your mom and I made a decision. Family has to come first sometimes. You're older, you can save up for another. Madison's event is a big deal for her." I tried to keep my hands from shaking. "You didn't have the right. That was mine. I paid for every part with my own money." Mom shrugged. "It's all for the family. You spend so much time on that thing anyway, it's not healthy. Maybe this will be a good reset for you." The heat of the kitchen pressed in, thick and relentless. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was stand there, the sense of betrayal burning a hole in my chest. My PC wasn't just a machine, it was years of birthdays and summer jobs, sleepless nights, and freelance deadlines that kept the lights on more than once. It was the one thing I'd built on my own, the one thing that made me feel in control. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I almost dropped it. Ethan was the first contact I saw. "They sold my PC. All of it. For Madison's shopping spree." He replied so fast I imagined him typing before I hit send. "Are you serious? That's insane. Did you even get a say?" "Nope. They said it was just sitting there." "You can't let them get away with this, Ash. That was yours." I swallowed back tears. I don't know what to do. I feel like I don't even exist here. The sound of the front door opening snapped me back. Madison waltzed in, arms full of glossy shopping bags, designer names stamped in gold. She stopped in the kitchen, beaming at Mom. Thank you, Thank you, she sang, twirling a little. I found everything I needed for the dance. You guys are the best. She caught sight of me standing there, hollowed out, barely holding it together. Her eyes sparkled, and she grinned. Oh, hey, Ash. Did you see my shoes? She wiggled her foot, showing off a pair of sparkly heels that probably cost more than my monthly rent would if I ever managed to move out. Then, as she swept past me, she leaned in close and winked. Hope you didn't need that old computer. You always said you were going to upgrade anyway. I watched her go, words caught in my throat. Mom and Dad carried on as if nothing had happened. The kitchen was full of light, the smell of apples and lavender, the buzz of normalcy so out of place it felt surreal. I stood there, fingers twitching with anger, the sticky air pressing in from all sides. For the first time, I understood how invisible a person could feel in their own home. The things I worked for, the effort I put in, none of it seemed to matter, not when it came to Madison, not when family priorities were on the line. I slipped away, my phone buzzing again, Ethan, still fighting for me in the only way he could. But all I could think about was the empty space on my desk upstairs, and the gnawing sense that something important had broken, not just in my room, but inside me. It's just stuff, Ash. You'll get over it. Madison's words echoed in my head long after she left my doorway, her arms full of bags, not a trace of guilt on her face. Maybe, for her, things really were that simple. For me, the emptiness left behind by my missing computer felt bigger than any object had a right to feel. I sat on the floor of my room, knees drawn up, staring at the spot where my PC had glowed blue into the night only days before. The room felt half empty now, my backup laptop, old and heavy, whirred and clunked on my desk, its screen dim and streaked. The moonlight came in through the blinds, painting pale lines across the carpet, dust motes floating in the glow. Scrolling through my phone, I found an old photo from a year back, me grinning, a little younger and a lot more hopeful, crouched next to my very first build. My hair was a mess, my hands smudged with thermal paste, but I looked proud in a way I hadn't felt in months. That PC had been my badge of independence, the proof that I could make something of my own in a house that rarely left room for my victories. The whole evening felt suspended in amber. I'd tried to eat, microwaving leftover brisket and barbecue beans, but nothing tasted right. The food was just fuel now, my mind was elsewhere. Every now and then I'd get up and pace, listlessly opening the window for fresh air, hoping to catch the hum of traffic from the highway, the city's heartbeat steady in the distance. At last, I gathered my nerve and knocked on Madison's door. She sat cross-legged on her bed, phone in hand, scrolling through TikTok, her new heels tossed in a corner. Madison, can we talk? She glanced up, eyebrows arched in manufactured innocence. What's up? My computer. You knew Mom and Dad were going to sell it? She shrugged, not bothering to hide a smirk. They mentioned it. I thought you'd understand. I mean, you always say you're independent and all. And besides, I needed the money. I tried to keep my voice calm. That was mine, Madison. You had no right. She rolled her eyes. It's not my fault. Mom and Dad made the call. And honestly, you're being dramatic. It's just a computer. Get over it. She looked back at her phone, signaling the end of the conversation. I stood there, words on the tip of my tongue, but nothing that would change her mind. I found Mom folding laundry in the living room, her face tired but resolute. You have to understand, honey, she said, voice gentle but immovable. Family sacrifices are normal. We all give things up sometimes for the people we love. I worked for years to buy that PC, Mom. You didn't even ask. She pressed a shirt flat and shook her head. We did what was best for the family. Madison needed help for once. You should be grateful you're able to help. Grateful. That word stung more than anything. Later, Dad cornered me in the kitchen, his jaw set, eyes stern. You need to stop acting like a victim. Sometimes you have to put family first, even if it hurts. Maybe this will teach you something about priorities. I turned away, holding back tears. Their logic was a language I couldn't speak. Back in my room, I called Ethan, my voice breaking before I got out a full sentence. They sold it, everything. And no one cares. His voice came through the tinny speaker, full of warmth and fire. We're not letting this slide, Ash. You bought that PC. It's yours. We'll prove it. He talked me through it. Start by gathering receipts, emails, anything that shows you paid for the parts. Look through your inbox for order confirmations. Take pictures of everything. I dug through drawers and email folders, tracing the breadcrumbs of every dollar earned, every birthday gift that became a stick of RAM, every late-night freelance gig that chipped in for a graphics card. The stack of receipts and screenshots grew, a silent testament to years of effort. Between texts, Ethan cracked jokes to distract me, sending memes and stories about the weirdos he'd met on South Congress. You know, he said, some people climb mountains, some build computers. Both require patience, and both can get taken out by someone else's stupidity. But we fight back. Always. His faith in me was a small comfort, something to hold on to as I scrolled job boards, my backup laptop lagging behind every click. Late that night, after everyone else had gone to bed, I stood by my window, looking out over the city. The skyline shimmered, soft and distant, and I thought about all the things I'd given up to build my little corner of the world, missed outings, skipped parties, every dollar earned and tucked away. I'd traded so much for a chance at independence, and now, it felt like even that had been stolen. Tears finally came, hot and angry. But as I wiped them away, a quiet resolve settled in my chest. If I didn't stand up for myself now, it would never end. I wasn't just grieving a computer, I was fighting for my own space, my right to be seen. Ethan's message blinked onto my screen, a rallying cry in a sea of silence. Ready for round 2? I stared at the words, took a shaky breath, and nodded to myself. For the first time in a long while, I felt something other than defeat. I felt ready. Dinner at our house always had an undercurrent, something humming just below the surface, never spoken aloud. But tonight, it was more like a riptide, pulling all of us into deeper, darker water. I could feel it in the way the mac and cheese steamed, untouched, and in the silence between the clink of forks. The TV mumbled in the background, a sitcom laugh track so out of place it made the room feel colder. I took my seat at the table, the folder in my hands thick with weeks of evidence, bank statements, faded receipts, screenshots of client emails. Every page was a brick in the wall I was finally ready to build between myself and the injustice I'd carried too long. Mom passed the sweet tea, her smile strained. Dad reached for the rotisserie chicken, carving off pieces for Madison, then Mom, then himself. I waited until everyone had food on their plates, and then I set the folder on the table, snapping it open with a certainty that was new, even to me. I need to talk, I said, my voice shaking just enough to betray how hard my heart was pounding. I have proof. That computer was mine, every single part, every cent paid from my own account. You had no right to sell it. The words hung in the air, thick as summer heat. Dad's jaw tightened. Mom looked away, her eyes darting to the window. Ashley, don't do this now, Mom whispered, folding her napkin. We've talked about this. Sometimes families make sacrifices. I slid the first receipt across the table, then another, PayPal, Venmo, birthday cards tucked with 20s, emails from clients thanking me for turning in projects on time. This is everything. All the proof you need. You sold something that wasn't yours. You need to make it right. Dad set down his fork. That's enough. We're not going to rehash this. You live here. What's in this house belongs to the family. I met his gaze, trying to keep my voice even. That's not how it works, Dad. I bought that PC. I used it to make money I used to help pay bills around here, remember? You always said I needed to learn about responsibility, but how am I supposed to if you take everything I work for? Madison chimed in, her tone syrupy sweet. You're being so dramatic, Ash. I didn't ask them to sell it. You're just mad because you lost. I turned to her, anger flaring. You didn't have to ask. You knew exactly what would happen if you pushed hard enough. She rolled her eyes, twirling her fork in her food. Whatever. I have a life, Ash. Maybe you should try it. I laid out the emails from clients, showing the deadlines I'd missed, the money I'd lost because my computer was gone. You talk about family sacrifices, but it's always me sacrificing for you. I'm done. Mom's voice sharpened. You're crossing a line. Don't make a scene, Ash. But I wasn't going to let them rewrite my story. If you don't pay me back, I'll take legal action. This is theft, plain and simple. The room snapped silent. The TV laughed, then faded. Dad's hand slammed down on the table, rattling the silverware. Fine. We'll pay you back. But you're on your own now. Don't expect anything else from us. You want to be independent? Be independent. A chill crept up my spine, but I held my ground. That's all I've wanted. Madison watched me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed, a kind of satisfaction that had nothing to do with justice. Dinner went cold as we sat there, the old script broken, no one sure what to say next. The mac and cheese congealed in the pan. The chicken dried out. Forks clinked against plates in a steady, awkward rhythm. It was as if the whole house was holding its breath, waiting for someone to say it had all been a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake. It was the cost of finally speaking up. As everyone rose to clear the table, Madison brushed past me, her voice low so only I could hear. Let's see how long you last out there. I looked up at her, surprised to find that the old ache, of wanting to fit, to be chosen, was gone. In its place was something steadier. Maybe it was anger, or maybe it was just relief. The air outside tasted different, sharper, maybe, or sweeter, depending on which breath I let myself believe. Freedom always came with a shadow of fear. That morning, with the Texas sun already hot against the sidewalks and the city humming awake around me, I tried to focus on the hope more than the doubt. Keys jingled in my palm as I closed the car door behind me. Ethan leaned on the hood, sunglasses perched, sweat darkening his t-shirt at the collar. You know, he said, most people just get a dog if they want a life shake-up. But you? Nah. Go big or go home. He grinned, and I managed a smile, my nerves too taut for much more. The curb outside our house was scattered with shadows, of my old life, of last night's conversation, of every warning Dad ever gave me. You'll come crawling back, you'll see. The words echoed, a challenge and a curse, but I shook them off, clutching the handle of a cardboard box filled with tangled cords and sketchbooks. Inside, the house was quiet, eerily so for moving day. I packed what was left in silence, a threadbare blanket, my favorite mug, a battered stack of art prints. The routine was soothing, a slow, meditative goodbye to a place that had shaped me, even if it rarely celebrated me. Mom met me at the door. There were no tears, no hugs, just a polite, cool nod. "Well," she said, voice clipped, "let us know when you get settled." "I will," I replied, not sure if either of us meant it. We stood in the entryway, the air thick with words neither of us would say. I looked for regret in her eyes but found only fatigue. Maybe she was grieving too, in her way. Ethan broke the tension, swinging a box over his shoulder. "All right, Ash, let's hit the road before the sun melts us into the pavement." He winked at Mom, who barely acknowledged him, and then we were out, feet crunching on gravel, the world feeling impossibly big and new. The drive across town was filled with Ethan's stories, wild tales of late-night taco runs, awkward first dates, the worst landlords in Austin. He kept up a steady stream of jokes, only pausing to crank up the AC when traffic stalled. "So," he asked, glancing over, "nervous yet?" "Terrified," I admitted, twisting the keys in my palm. "But I think that's the point." We pulled up to the squat building that would be my new home, a faded brick studio, vines creeping along the edges. I climbed the stairs, balancing 2 boxes and my racing heart. The hallway was quiet, sun-dappled, a patchwork of old mail and welcome mats. I paused at my new door, Unit 3B, the numbers painted crooked, and slid the key into the lock. It clicked, the most satisfying sound I'd heard in months. The space was small, just one room with a kitchenette and a window that overlooked the street. It smelled faintly of dust and fresh paint, the kind of emptiness that begged to be filled. Ethan set the last box on the floor, surveying the place. "It's got character," he said, looking around. "You'll have it whipped into a home in no time." I opened the blinds, letting in a wash of sunlight. My breath caught, there was the skyline, distant but clear, the city laid out like a promise. Unpacking became a ritual. My art prints went above the desk, the battered mug beside the sink, a row of books along the single shelf. I made coffee, the old-fashioned way, filling the space with the comfort of something familiar. My PC wasn't there, not yet, but the backup laptop would do. For now, it was enough. As the afternoon faded into evening, Ethan helped assemble a wobbly IKEA chair, cursing the Allen wrench under his breath. When everything was in its place, such as it was, he stood in the doorway, keys jangling. "You got this, Ash. No crawling back. Unless it's for tacos, then all bets are off." We laughed, the sound echoing in the empty room, and then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a finality that made me shiver. Night settled in, warm and restless. Outside, cars rumbled past, cicadas chirped, and somewhere down the street, a dog barked at nothing. I sat on my makeshift bed, staring out at the city, feeling both incredibly small and entirely free. I poured myself a second cup of coffee, why not, and lined up my pens just so, a little ritual to remind myself I was here, and this was mine. For a while, the doubt crept in. I thought of all the ways things could go wrong, the bills, the clients, the loneliness. I remembered Dad's voice, sharp with certainty, "You'll come crawling back." I hugged my knees, fighting the urge to believe him. But then I powered up my laptop, the fan wheezing, and typed out an email to a new client. Subject: ready for more design work. Body: thank you for your patience. I'm available this week and can deliver on a tight timeline. Hope is a choice, I reminded myself, as I hit send. Just as I started to settle into the quiet, my phone buzzed. A new message. "We need you at home. Madison's upset." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over reply. Instead, I switched my phone to silent and set it face down on the nightstand. The city kept on humming outside, the apartment glowing with the promise of a new beginning. I closed my eyes, breathing in the sticky heat and the faint bitterness of strong coffee, letting the uncertainty settle alongside the hope. For the first time in a long while, both felt like mine. My new apartment echoed with emptiness and possibility. Every time I unpacked a box or hung a picture, it felt like claiming a tiny piece of freedom. The walls were thin and the furniture was barely more than IKEA's greatest hits, but it was all mine. Even the imperfections, the scuffed baseboard, the slightly crooked blinds, the drip-drip of the bathroom faucet, seemed to say, "You belong here now. You make the rules." It was early July in Austin, the heat settling over the city like a heavy blanket. I propped my window open with a paperback, letting in warm air and the low thump of a neighbor's playlist, somewhere between country and indie pop, with a bass line that rattled the glass. My cold brew sweated on the sill, beads forming and sliding down in slow motion. I set up my laptop at the tiny table that doubled as my desk and dining room. The kitchen, if you could call a mini fridge and 2 burners a kitchen, was stocked with the basics: boxed mac and cheese, a single lemon, coffee grounds, and takeout napkins. I'd always thought I would feel grown up the first time I had a place of my own, but mostly I just felt exposed, like there was nowhere to hide from my own hopes and doubts. Still, I tried to focus. I was scheduled for a remote job interview that afternoon, a contract with a small marketing firm. The plan was to impress them with my portfolio, snag a few steady gigs, and maybe, finally, feel secure. As the call started, I straightened my notepads, dabbed at a stray curl, and took a steadying breath. Halfway through the interview, as I shared my screen to walk through a logo concept, my laptop froze. The cursor blinked and then, with a grinding noise, the whole machine went black. "No, no, no," I muttered, pressing keys, trying everything I knew. The silence stretched, my heart hammering. I wanted to scream or cry, or maybe both. This was supposed to be my new beginning, not another failure. I was about to hurl my mouse across the room when a soft knock came from next door. The door creaked open, and a woman poked her head in, quirky, with round glasses and a ponytail, her t-shirt advertising a Mothman festival. "Hey, you okay in there?" "You sounded frustrated." I laughed weakly. My laptop just crashed in the middle of a job interview. "Welcome to my TED Talk on bad timing." She grinned, stepping inside. "I'm Tracy, Unit 3C. I've lived through 6 apartment Wi-Fi outages and 1 accidental kitchen fire, so if you need backup, I'm your girl. Also, I have spare Wi-Fi if yours is down." "I'm Ashley." "Thanks. I might take you up on the Wi-Fi." She set her phone down, glancing around. "I used to stream games, mostly. Thought I'd get rich on Twitch, but ended up with a dozen loyal viewers and 1 persistent troll. Sometimes starting over is just part of the package. You never know what you can do until you try, right?" The words, borrowed from my mom's old advice, made me smile. That's the dream. With Tracy's hotspot and her easy humor, I managed to reschedule the call for later that week. By then, Ethan showed up, arms full of flat-packed furniture and a bag of tacos from my favorite truck. "I figured if we can survive assembling this desk without a fight, you'll thrive here," he joked, digging for an Allen wrench. We spent the afternoon wrestling with screws and laughing at the diagrams that made everything look both too simple and impossibly confusing. For a while, my anxiety faded into the background. That night, the city's nightlife buzzed faintly through my window, honking horns, snippets of music, the rise and fall of laughter. Inside, Tracy and Ethan squeezed onto the futon, passing around tacos and swapping stories. Tracy about the time her streaming setup caught fire, Ethan about his first and last attempt at karaoke. "You know," Tracy said, "every little win counts." Today, you didn't let a laptop crash ruin your life. That's huge. Ethan raised his soda in a mock toast. To Ashley, queen of comebacks and owner of the world's strongest coffee. After they left, I sat by the window, the city's glow stretching far and wide. I powered on my laptop, held my breath, and this time, it booted. I finished up some tweaks on a logo for a new client, sent it off, and to my surprise, got a reply just after midnight. Payment received. Great work. Looking forward to the next project. My first freelance payment, earned in my own space, in my own way. I let myself feel proud, a rare, shimmering kind of pride that no one could take. Just as I was savoring the win, my phone buzzed. A message from Madison, her number still saved in my contacts. Having fun being broke yet? No greeting, just the usual sting. I stared at the screen, considered a dozen possible replies, then locked my phone and set it aside. There was music outside, laughter down the hall, and my cold brew still sweating on the sill. I was alone, but not lonely. For tonight, that was enough. Just as I started to breathe, really breathe, with the slow, tentative hope that maybe I could make it on my own, my phone started buzzing, one vibration after another. The family group chat was lit up with blue bubbles, Mom's texts long and winding, Dad's short and clipped. I'd been expecting something, I guess, but not the flood I got. Linda started, her words weaving between guilt and nostalgia. We miss you, Ashley. The house is so quiet now. You know family is everything. Your sister isn't herself, and I can't sleep. Please think about coming for dinner this weekend. It's not the same without you. A few seconds later, Robert chimed in, each message more like a verdict than a plea. This isn't how we raised you. We're all suffering because of your decisions. I hope you realize the stress you're causing your mother. I sat on the futon, half-finished coffee cooling on the window ledge, heart in my throat. I could picture them, sitting together in the kitchen, Mom with red-rimmed eyes, Dad's jaw set, both sure they were in the right. Outside, dusk was settling over Austin, the air alive with distant music and the sweet smell of grilling meat from a food truck somewhere down the street. Just when I tried to look away, my phone pinged again, this time, Madison. She wasn't texting. She was tagging me in a parade of Instagram stories, neon shopping bags, a close-up of her new shoes, a group selfie from some rooftop party. The captions felt sharp as glass. Hashtag treat yourself, hashtag best life, hashtag thanks sis. She tagged me, daring me to respond, drawing invisible lines in public for all her friends to see. I needed air. I slipped out, headed for my favorite coffee shop a few blocks away, a converted bungalow filled with mismatched chairs and the chatter of students and freelancers. The line was long, the crowd young and noisy. The barista remembered my order and grinned. Rough night? She asked, passing over a vanilla cold brew. Family, I said, and she just nodded, as if that explained everything. Ethan called while I was stirring sugar into my drink. They'll always pull you back in if you let them, he warned. Trust me, block them for a week. See how it feels to just be you. I almost laughed. It's not that easy. It never is. But you deserve peace. Give yourself permission. I promise to try. Tracy found me at a table by the window, a paper bag from the night market in hand. She sat, looking perfectly at home among the noise and neon. Want to hit the market? She offered. Food trucks, cheap candles, questionable jewelry. Plus, I can tell you the story of my disastrous first year out on my own. I hesitated, but her smile made it easy. Lead the way. We wandered through the night market under strings of lights. People milled around, vendors shouting over the music, someone playing an old guitar near the curb. Tracy told stories, how her parents tried to guilt her back, how she learned to set boundaries, how sometimes the bravest thing is not picking up the phone. Family pulls, she said, but you get to decide how tight that rope is. We shared tacos and watched as a local band tuned up in the corner. I thought of Ethan's advice and, for a moment, switched my phone to Do Not Disturb. The music, the laughter, the heat of the Austin night, they filled in the spaces my family used to occupy. Back home, though, the quiet came creeping in again. The urge to check my phone tugged at me, and I found myself scrolling through the unread messages, the tags, the photos of Madison's new haul. It all felt so far away, like something happening to someone else. Finally, heart pounding, I typed a reply in the group chat. I'm not coming back. Please respect that. I need to do this for myself. I stared at the words, then hit send, feeling my chest loosen and tighten all at once. For a long while, there was nothing, no reply, no dots, just silence. I sipped the last of my coffee, watching headlights dance across the ceiling. The city outside was alive, but inside, it was just me and the thrum of hope and worry. Just as I thought I'd made it through, another notification blinked onto my screen. Madison's birthday dinner, this Saturday 7 p.m. RSVP. A tug, sharp and familiar. The rope might stretch, but it never snapped. I set my phone face down, letting the noise of the city fill the silence, reminding myself that every choice to stay away was also a choice to grow. Just one dinner, Ash. For Madison. The message blinked on my screen, the words echoing in my mind. I read it over and over, thumb hovering above reply. The city outside was alive, car horns, bursts of laughter from the bar downstairs, the sun melting behind the Austin skyline. In my studio, it felt like time had slowed, holding me in the pause between memory and choice. I pulled out an old photo album, a relic from before digital everything, its pages curling at the corners. A snapshot caught my eye, my family on a checkered blanket by the lake, birthday cake in the grass, everyone mid-laugh. Back then, birthdays meant watermelon, bad sunscreen, and the feeling that nothing could go wrong. Those days felt like another life. Ethan called as I stood in the kitchen, the fridge door open, searching for dinner and maybe advice. You going? He asked, no need to clarify what. I don't know, I admitted. It's just one meal, but I'm not sure it would really be about Madison. It always turns into something else. Ethan whistled low. You don't owe them anything. If you go, go for you, not for them. I met Tracy in the hallway, both of us heading for takeout. She carried a tote bag full of market finds and an easy kind of confidence. You look haunted, she said, holding the door as we stepped into the heavy summer air. I shrugged. Family drama. She nodded, understanding. You can say no, you know. That's an answer too. Boundaries don't build themselves. As we waited for tacos at the corner stand, I checked my phone again. Madison had left a string of texts, some pleading, some sharp, all ending with her signature flourish. Would it kill you to be there for me for once? Aren't you at least a little curious who'll show up? Guess I'll just tell everyone you're too busy for family now. Linda's message came next. No drama, I promise. It would mean so much to your sister. We all miss you, sweetheart. But a minute later, Robert called, his tone cool as steel. We expect you here. Don't make things worse than they already are. He hung up before I could say a word. Back home, I set the tacos down and flipped through family photos on my phone, searching for something, nostalgia, maybe, or forgiveness. The studio felt different in the fading light, the hum of summer night pressing in from all sides. I thought about how easy it would be to slip back into old patterns, to go for one dinner and wind up right where I started. Ethan and Tracy joined me, the three of us sharing food and stories as the night unfolded. The music from the street festival a block over drifted in through the window, the city's pulse mixing with my nerves. "You get to decide what you want," Tracy said, handing me a soda. "They'll always want you to come back, but you have a life here now. Sometimes growing up means choosing yourself." I let her words settle, feeling their truth. I wasn't angry, just tired of being the only one who had to bend. Finally, I called Linda. "Hi, Mom." She sounded surprised. "Ashley. I hope you're calling to say you'll come." I sat on the edge of my bed, breathing in the night air. "I can't, Mom. I'm sorry. I can't pretend everything is fine when it's not. I need more time." A pause, her breath catching. "If you don't come, don't expect us to wait forever." "I hope that's not true," I said, my voice soft but steady. "But I can't be the only one trying." We said goodbye, her voice brittle as glass. I hung up, letting the hum of the city fill the silence. Outside, the festival's music rose and fell, laughter echoing off the buildings. I felt nostalgic, yes, but also resolute, like maybe this summer would be the first one I built on my own terms. The invitation to dinner still sat unanswered in my inbox. But for the first time, I felt the power in choosing not to reply. For the first time, I put myself first, and I didn't apologize for it. There was a lightness in the air, as if the whole city was rooting for me, or maybe it was just the hum of the cicadas on another muggy Austin night. Downtown skyline blinked through my studio window, reflected in the little glass vase Tracy had given me. Her plant, a cheerful pothose, had started to bloom, a pop of green against my wall of art prints. The silence felt different now. Not empty, but open. I blocked the family group chat, left Madison's number unblocked, just in case, but for everyone else, the line went quiet. The absence of notifications was both strange and peaceful. I set my phone down, determined to fill my time with something more than old worries. I threw myself into freelance work, taking on 2 new clients and tinkering with my own website. The desk Ethan and I had built together was finally organized, littered with sticky notes and half-drunk coffee cups. On good days, I'd treat myself to takeout, sometimes from a new taco truck, sometimes just a donut and iced coffee after a long evening walk down South Congress. Every little joy felt earned. Tracy dragged me out to trivia night at the corner bar, where she reigned as undisputed queen of random facts. We lost by a mile, but it didn't matter. There were neon lights, a pitcher of lemonade, and the thrill of being just another person in a crowd. "You're different lately," she said as we headed home, the heat still clinging to the night. "Braver, maybe." "I'm just tired of apologizing," I told her, and it was true. Ethan kept up our tradition of midweek check-ins, this time over video chat. "Big news, Ash," he said, grinning through a pixelated screen. "Your stream hit 50 regulars. You're basically famous." I laughed, shaking my head. "Pretty sure 50 viewers is just barely internet famous." "Hey, it's a start. Plus, your chat's actually friendly." "That's rare." Streaming became my new outlet, a way to connect without ever leaving my own space. People from all over popped in to watch me design, tell stories, or just hang out. For the first time, I felt seen by strangers in a way I'd never felt at home. Of course, the world never lets go so easily. Madison's texts found their way through, laced with the usual mix of bitterness and bravado. "You'll regret this." Don't say I didn't warn you. I read the message, let it sting for a moment, then let it go. I didn't respond. One night, I checked my email and found a message with the subject line, "Thank you." Inside, a simple note. "Your story made me feel less alone. I thought I was the only one with a family like that. Don't give up." I reread it, surprise and pride flooding through me. All the isolation, the struggle to carve out my own space, suddenly felt worth it if it helped even one person out there. Late that night, after another walk past the city's glowing lights, I fell asleep on the futon. Morning came with a buzz of notifications. My number was trending in a streamer support group. People were sharing my clips, retelling parts of my journey, swapping advice about standing up for yourself, about drawing your own line in the sand. I stared at the screen, coffee warming my hands, and smiled. I wasn't alone, not anymore. I wasn't perfect, and I still had rough days, but every step away from the old patterns brought me closer to who I wanted to be. With the city waking up around me, my little plant stretching toward the sun, and hope settling in beside the old scars, I knew I was finally building something that was mine, and that was enough. I realized I hadn't checked my phone for family messages in weeks, and I didn't miss it. The old urge to scan notifications every morning, to brace for some sharp text or cold silence, had faded without me even noticing. It was as if my life had gently closed that chapter, letting something softer and quieter take its place. Sunlight streamed through my studio windows, catching on the leaves of Tracy's little plant and bouncing off the growing collection of art prints above my desk. The space was alive now, each corner layered with evidence of new routines, vintage mugs, a calendar full of project deadlines, ticket stubs from trivia nights. My mornings started with iced coffee from the shop on the corner, sometimes shared with Ethan, who was always game for a pastry run and a quick download of the latest streaming drama. On weekends, the city felt like mine. I'd wander the vintage markets, picking up a pair of sunglasses or a quirky lamp, then meet Tracy and Ethan in the park for barbecue and local beer. The grass was warm, the air smelled of smoke and summer, and our laughter blended with the sounds of a city always awake, always moving forward. I found myself mentoring a new streamer from our little online community, a nervous college kid with a big heart and a rough microphone. We traded tips over coffee, me passing along the hard-won lessons about boundaries, burnout, and letting go of what you can't control. "You get to decide who has a seat at your table," I told them, echoing advice I'd once needed for myself. After a late-night editing project, Tracy and Ethan dragged me out to the park for an impromptu celebration. The freelance gig I'd landed was a big one, steady work for months, real money, real recognition. Tracy brought homemade cookies, Ethan arrived with lawn chairs and a Bluetooth speaker. We ate barbecue on paper plates, watched the sunset paint the Austin skyline, and swapped stories about our best and worst jobs. "Look at you," Ethan teased, raising a toast with his root beer. "Ash, queen of second chances." I laughed, letting the moment settle. "Not queen, just, finally at peace." Later that week, I ran into an old family friend at the coffee shop. She asked about my parents, her voice careful. "They're getting by," she said, after I shrugged. "A little lost, maybe, but too proud to reach out. Just thought you should know." I thanked her, honestly grateful for the update but surprised to find I didn't ache to fix it. I wished them well, truly, but I wasn't tempted to go back. I'd built something here, fragile but real. That night, I scrolled through my phone, saw the old family group text, hundreds of unread messages, most months old now. I hovered over it, felt a pang of nostalgia, then tapped delete. There was no bitterness in the gesture, only relief. It felt like finally setting down a heavy bag after a long journey. I woke early the next morning, light pouring in through my window. I made coffee, put on music, and watched the city stretch awake. A new notification pinged on my phone, a message from a follower. "You changed my life." I finally stood up for myself because I heard your story. "Thank you for showing me it's possible." The words took my breath for a moment. All those nights I doubted myself, all the quiet tears and small victories, now strung together as proof, not just of survival, but of quiet strength. I looked out at the city, my home now, and felt at peace, not whole, but whole enough. As the sun crept higher, Tracy texted, "Rooftop sunset, vintage shopping, coffee run?" I smiled, pulled on my shoes, and stepped into another day of my own making. No more apologies. Just the simple joy of being here, piece by piece, exactly as I am. The sunlight in my window painted everything gold. For the first time in a long while, I let myself believe I deserved it. I padded across the quiet studio, the floor cool under my bare feet, and started the coffee brewing. The city outside was still waking up, soft traffic on South Congress, the distant bark of a dog, the thrum of possibility in the warm Austin air. Mom's last voicemail sometimes echoed in my mind, "We only wanted what's best for you." There was no anger left, only a bittersweet understanding. Maybe she'd always meant well, in her way. But I finally understood that I get to define best for myself. This morning, this life, was the answer I'd been looking for. I set fresh flowers from the farmer's market in a mason jar by the window. Tracy had dropped them off with a note, "Congrats on year 1. Next year, rooftop garden?" A simple, bright bouquet, sunflowers and daisies, that made the place look like something out of a storybook. I arranged them between my art prints and the cheerful pothose that had survived its first Austin summer, proud and green. Today was a big day, a year since I'd moved out, a year since I'd found my own voice. I prepped for my morning stream, stacking sketchbooks, lining up my pens, pinning a "Be Right Back" sign to the camera just in case. There was a gentle thrill in the ritual. What once felt lonely was now familiar, full of anticipation instead of dread. Ethan popped onto video chat, hair tousled, mug of coffee in hand. "Happy Ashlyversary," he declared. "Any plans besides breaking your own streaming record?" I grinned. "Tracy's threatening to bake a cake. If it's half as good as her trivia skills, we'll need emergency takeout." He laughed, then turned thoughtful. "Seriously, Ash. You did something big. I hope you're proud." "I am. More than I ever thought I could be." We traded dreams about the future, a bigger studio, maybe a road trip, the idea of someday inviting my own community to meetups under Texas skies. Ethan promised to DJ, bad playlists, and all. Tracy let herself in with her signature knock, balancing a lopsided chocolate cake with the words "first year free" piped in yellow icing. "It's hideous," she announced, "but I made it myself." Like most good things. We lit a candle, snapped a photo, and made silly wishes. No more broken laptops, tacos on every corner, peace with whatever came next. As the morning brightened, I logged into my stream, heart full. My chat filled with greetings, old friends, new faces, people from every corner of the country. I welcomed a newcomer, a nervous username blinking in the chat. "You're safe here," I typed. We all started somewhere. It felt good to pay it forward, to offer what I'd once needed most. The conversation flowed easily. I answered questions about design, told stories about Austin, and shared little lessons learned the hard way. Toward the end, I paused, looking into the lens, thinking of everyone who'd ever felt lost or invisible. "Sometimes you have to leave to discover who you are," I said, voice steady. "And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find a place that feels like home, one you make for yourself, piece by piece. Thank you for being part of mine. I ended the stream, letting the applause of chat messages roll over me like sunlight. Tracy hugged me tight, her laughter ringing off the walls. Ethan sent a flurry of celebratory gifts. I grabbed my keys, threw on sandals, and stepped outside. The Austin morning greeted me, market stalls busy with fresh bread and peaches, the scent of breakfast tacos wafting from the corner, the city pulsing with life and hope. The gold of the sunrise caught in every window, every smile. I took a deep breath, feeling freedom in every cell, possibility in every step. I didn't know exactly what the future would hold, but I knew this much: the sunrise was mine. As I stepped out into the golden light of a new morning, I realized how far I'd come, each small choice adding up to a life I could finally call my own. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us to let go and believe we deserve kindness, from ourselves and from others. I've learned that family isn't just about blood, but about finding those who lift you up and respect your journey. If my story touched something in your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts or memories. After all, it's never too late to begin again, and sometimes, the sunrise really is ours for the taking.